Guys, welcome to week 34 of my journey to scratch. This week's episode is all about consistency in ball striking. Pretty much what we're going to be looking at is doing a test to sort of figure out what part of ball striking is causing you to be inconsistent. A little bit about me if you're kind of new to the channel. I am a 9 handicap trying to get down to scratch and documenting the whole process. And with that is kind of evaluating what parts of my game are the worst. Quite honestly, my greens and regulation, my approach game is the absolute worst stat that I have, and it's the weakest part of my game. That's kind of why I'm tackling this sort of this ball striking aspect of the game, because that's really what's going to help my greens and regulation stat. Really quickly, I got this test really based off of the practice manual from Adam Young. This is a fantastic read. I've been listening to his podcast for over a year. He shares it with John Sherman from Practical Golf. And it's fantastic information. I strongly recommend you guys give it a listen. And if you want to check out this book, if anybody that's serious about learning to practice better, I think this is a must read. So I'll link it down below if you're interested. Really, the purpose of this test is to try to figure out what part of your ball striking is causing you to be inconsistent. And the more consistent that you are, the better of a ball striker you're going to be, the more greens and regulation you're going to hit, and really the easier this game becomes. So first, let's kind of go over what makes a good ball striker. So first, they are very good at controlling their distances, and then second, they're very good at controlling their direction and their directional misses. So how far left and how far right they are from their target. There's really three things that affect direction and distance, okay? And that's really what we're going to be testing for in this test. Let's kind of go one by one, and then we'll kind of go over how we test for each of them. So the first thing is ground contact. So where is your club face interacting with the ground? So if it's kind of behind it, then you call that shot a fat shot. If it's way in front or you're not even making contact with the ground, then it's very thin. And you ideally want it to be hitting the ball and directly contacting the ground right after. So that would be sort of a perfect ground contact. There's a couple different ways that you can test for this. It'll kind of depend if you're able to hit off of the grass or if you have to hit off of mats. I was not fortunate enough to be able to hit off the grass, but what you can do if you're hitting off the grass, you can kind of put a tee in line with your ball and sort of see where your divot starts, right? So if it's behind the tee, then you know it was fat. If it's way in front, then you know it was thin. Or if it's not there, then you know that it was thin. And if it was directly after the ball or directly after your tee, then you know that it was a perfect strike. I didn't have this luxury, so I kind of came up with a solution on my own, and it was pretty much to set up my iPhone, recording in slow motion at 120 frames per second and seeing where the club face was interacting with the ground. And then you can kind of see the dust flying up from the mat, showing you kind of where you were making contact. So that's test number one. And pretty much what you want to do is just record 10 different shots, seeing if you're hitting it fat, perfect, or thin. And you can go deeper than that if you want, like very fat, slightly fat, just kind of make a range of your own. That's sort of what I did. I kind of called it fat, slightly fat, perfect, slightly thin, very thin. And then I kind of came up with a number system that way, but it's really up to you. And really what you're caring about is figuring out what's the tendency. Are you hitting a lot of shots fat? Then that's kind of what you got to work on. Okay. Test number two is face strike. So where in relation to your club face are you striking the ball? Is it a little bit more toey? Is it a little bit more heely? This is going to impact your distance control pretty significantly. This one kind of affects your directional control as well, right? Because we know that toey shots tend to go a little bit left and heely shots tend to go a little bit right. The way that we're going to be testing for this, the way that I did it was using foot spray. I bought this off of Amazon for like $5, and then I just kind of sprayed it on. I was able to hit like 3-4 balls at a time, and it was just kind of easy and simple to do. I'll link this one down below if you're interested, or if you got smelly feet and you got some at home, then you're already set. So the other way to do it is to grab a dry erase marker and sort of circle on your range ball facing your club face. So whenever you hit it, the mark will come off and stay on your club face. And that's the other way. I've never done it that way, but I'm sure it works. And you really just are trying to figure out if you're hitting it center contact, a little bit toey, a little bit heely, and just kind of figure out what your tendencies are there too. So you also want to hit 10 shots and sort of write down your results. Now, the last one is the easiest one to gauge, because you just kind of have to pick a target and figure out how far left or how far right you're hitting the golf ball. And just kind of write down your results. I was using the Garmin R10 and just kind of had it set up, and it was recording all the data for me, which made things a lot easier, but you obviously don't have to do that. And the best part is, which I guess I probably should have said in the very beginning, is you can do all three tests at the same time. And you just kind of want to record all this data and sort of analyze it and figure out what part is causing you to have inconsistent contact with the golf ball. And hopefully by fixing them, you become a better ball striker. You become better at controlling your distances and controlling your left to right dispersion. So yeah, so now I kind of want to go over my results. So as you probably saw in the background, we had a bunch of the tests going on. And yeah, so I did the test with a 9-iron and a 6-iron, so kind of a shorter iron and a longer iron for me. I only carry a 6-iron and a 5-iron. So I was looking at those two specifically. I recorded 10 shots. All my camera gear was overheating, so I think I only was able to record 9 shots with my 9-iron and a little over 10 shots with my 6-iron, but the results were kind of crazy. So I'm an engineer by trade, and I started kind of doing like a big analysis on all this stuff, and I realized that nobody would watch it. So I'm kind of gonna give you guys a SparkNotes version of it. So test number 1, the ground contact. I was hitting it very slightly thin with a 9-iron. I wouldn't even consider that a huge miss. I think I hit 2 shots very slightly thin. With my 6-iron though, it was a completely different story. And I would consider it very fat. I think in 4 or 5 occasions, I was coming up like 1.5 inches, 2 inches behind the ball, which is just absolutely terrible. So I think that's going to be kind of the biggest area for me to focus on here in the next couple weeks and see how we can improve with our longer clubs. Now for test number 2, face contact, I would say ever so slightly off the heel with my 9-iron, ever so slightly, but honestly could totally play that all day. I was quite honestly hitting the heck out of my 9-iron that day. I had some carry like 148 yards, which for me that's a long ways. If you guys have been kind of following my journey, you know that I've been putting a lot of emphasis into gaining more yardage with my clubs. So that was really, really cool to see. I think on average, I was carrying my 9 like 142 yards, which is really, really good for me. Now for my 6-iron, it was sort of all over the place. But I think as I was rewatching the video, I kind of saw sort of what was going on. So I started out a little bit heely, and then I tried to correct it by going the opposite way and hitting some off the toe. And then it just kind of straightened out to the middle. But kind of what I was noticing was the ones that were dead in the middle, I was also chunking a good bit. So there's some sort of relationship there that we have to sort of investigate. Now for test number 3, direction, with my 9-iron, it was absolutely amazing. So I think my average was about 2 yards to the left of the flag with a range of -10 yards to +10 yards, which is really, really good for a 9-iron. I think I almost hit the pin 3 times, so that sort of helped. I was striking my 9-iron a hell of a lot better than I normally do, so that was really interesting to see, but I've been putting in a ton of work to sort of improve these things if you've been watching my golf lessons and stuff. So honestly, the directional control with my 6-iron wasn't that bad. So I had 20 yards left and 20 yards right was my range, which is not great, but it's also really not that bad. The only thing was that I had a standard deviation of 12 yards. So you sort of hope for all your shots to be kind of all lumped together so that you can kind of know where to miss. So that's kind of pretty much it for this week's video. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I know kind of a different one, but I thought this was a really, really cool test, and I really wanted to share it with you guys in case that it could help your games out as well. I have a lot of really fun stuff coming up. I think I have a golf lesson with Zach next week, and I think we're gonna be doing a giveaway, so make sure you stay tuned for that. If you're new to the channel, welcome, subscribe first of all, second of all, introduce yourself down below. I love hearing all about your golf journeys and how everything is going, how your golf season is going, and if you've shot some low scores. So yeah, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure you drop a like. I had a lot of fun making it. I think it was very important for me to see these things. I'm gonna be working pretty hard on focusing on the longer irons and making better ground contact and hoping that things straighten out that way. So with that said, I will catch you guys next week. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful week. I hope you're playing fantastic golf. I hope you're shooting low scores and your golf seasons are going well. And I'll see y'all later. Take care.